Hello, it's Regina. Welcome back to my haunted library. Today I have a review for a new book that just came out last month, I believe. This is called The Bedwetter, Journal of a Budding Psychopath by Lee Allen Howard. I was sent this book by the publisher, which is an indie publisher. It looks like it's self-published, for an honest review. So here goes. This book is a little hard for me to review because this is not the type of horror that I really seek out, which is more of like the extreme, kind of bizarro splatterpunk type of horror. So bear that in mind. But I'm going to try to look at this looking at this on its own merits and not my kind of repulsion to that type of genre. Although it was a little hard to get past that at times. However, the book has a lot of positive things about that. So I'm going to try to focus mostly on that. But when I first looked at this, I guess it's something about the cover and certainly about the blurb on the back. His urination led to ruination. So I was kind of expecting something, like I said, a little more bizarro, almost a little more tongue-in-cheek, kind of funny. I have several of these types of books on my shelf in my indie library. And I've read them mostly from people sending them to me or just kind of out of curiosity. And I like to support indie writers. And what I have found that a lot of them, including this one, are very well written and do a good job with what they're doing, which is, like I said, very, very graphic. So this would definitely come with like a warning. And on the Goodreads page, it does have like a warning that this is extreme. I wasn't quite prepared for how extreme it was, but yeah. So let me read the blurb first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the book. The Bedwetter, Journal of a Budding Psychopath by Lee Allen Howard. All right, so it has a pretty long blurb, but just bear with me. Armed with electric hair trimmers and a military fighting knife, Russell accepts his dark commission. Russell Pisarick is a 26-year-old and still wets the bed. He grew up different from other young men because his vicious mother punished him for wetting by shaving his head. When he confided this to his girlfriend Tina, she betrayed him, advertising his problem to all their high school classmates who turned on him mercilessly. He took out his frustration by skinning neighborhood cats. So there's more, but I just wanted to interject. This book does have like a graphic depiction of animal abuse, which I had to skim over because I can't read that. I just can't. I guess that's where my line is drawn when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now Russell fantasizes about finding just the right woman so he can shave her bald. He struggles to overcome his dark tendencies, but when his sister discovers he's wetting again, she kicks him out of her house. During this time of stress, the mythical Piss Fairy appears in his dreams, and Russell is driven to satisfy his twisted desires with his innocent coworker Uma, who also needs a new roommate. When his plans go awry, the Piss Fairy commissions him for a much darker task that graduates him from shaving to scalping and worse. Okay, so the blurb kind of gives away the whole plot, but even just when you're on the first page, it's extremely graphic scene. In fact, I was sitting at the kitchen table having breakfast with my husband, and I'm like, I want to read something to you. And I'm not going to read it now because it'll probably get me kicked off YouTube. But it's this very graphic scene in which Russell is raping his mother with a pair of these trimmers that she used to abuse him. Now, it does turn out to be a dream, but you kind of know right from the start what you're dealing with. So Russell is just like this. I mean, he's just kind of like a lost soul completely, or has no soul. He, whatever glimmer of humanity he had in him was just kicked out of him by starting with his mother's abuse. When he would wet the bed, she would give him a baldy. This was something like my dad, who would have been 100 years old this summer, grew up in a different era, and he told me that his brothers would hold him down and give him a baldy as like punishment. So that must have been a thing. I mean, it's horrible. My father wasn't a psychopath, thank God, but I know that was he had a lot of stories about sort of like familial abuse. And in a lot of ways, this book is kind of a testament to the horror that will happen to a human being when they're abused horribly. And Russell kind of grows up, and this is all first person, so you're kind of brought right into this guy's world and his mind. It's not a mind that I wanted to linger in, although the book is a very fast read. I was kind of grateful for that because it was a very uncomfortable read in a lot of places for me. But it kind of shows that how his whatever shreds of ego he has after being horribly abused and mistreated and kind of not just abused but scapegoated in the family, which has its own kind of pain that goes along with it. His sister's favored, and so her life turns out pretty good. And he has a pretty good relationship with his sister, and he does have, I mean, the only glimmer of humanity you see in this character is that he does have affection for his nephew, his young nephew, who he has a good relationship with. But even that is then taken away from him, and he spirals even more down into darkness. But so what shreds of ego he has are decimated when his girlfriend in high school, he confides in her about his bedwetting problem, and she turns around and makes it the joke of the school, and he gets teased and bullied, and that has also done its damage. So he finds himself at 26 kind of in a very grim world, about to be kicked out of his sister's house because she's moving on with her life with her boyfriend, and you can't blame her because this guy is just, it's hard to find anything redeeming about this young man. So a girl that he works with at the animal lab where he works, it's a very depressing job, likes him. So there's some sense of like, if he weren't so lost and damaged, he actually could have a relationship with somebody. But instead of getting to know her better and maybe developing like even a friendship, he does something horrible to her. And it's very much in graphic detail, and there's a sexual sadism, body dismemberment, all kinds of horrible things. So it was kind of hard to be like rooting for this guy, And that's the problem I have with some of these, even stories about serial killers or like Dexter, which I've never watched, but I'm not interested in that kind of thing. But this Russell character kind of reminded me of a documentary I saw that I found really disturbing about a serial killer named Edmund Kemper, who was abused by his mother, and he took out this ritualistic abuse on animals, and then he graduated to co-eds, and he killed his own grandparents first when he was a young teenager, was in a mental hospital, got out, and went on, I think he killed a dozen people before he finally killed his mother and her friend and turned himself in. And from what I remember kind of gleaning from that documentary, this book gets into a lot of that stuff about the ego and the wanting to feel power when you're powerless, especially for this, a young man who's got a lot of emotions and rage and not really an outlet for it. What this book does really well is the author's very good at creating this immersive world of Russell's grim life, and it's like a 360 immersion in this world. So I immediately was there. I couldn't really distance myself from this world, and that is the talent of the writer. So I do appreciate, even though this was hard to get through as far as it was repulsive a lot of the times, it's highly skilled. My only criticism of this book is that I think that it would have been a lot stronger of a story if we had seen more of the conflict between Russell almost going in a redemptive direction versus the direction he went in. I felt like there wasn't enough of like an inner struggle there. That would have been more interesting. Instead, there's just like such a small, it's like someone lights a tiny match in an ocean of darkness and it has no hope. I think if there had been a little more hope, even if the darkness does win in the end in a tragic turn, that it would have been a more interesting read for me. I guess I would have gotten more out of it. So this was hard to rate this book. So I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5 because it is really well done. And I would even go with like 4. I don't know. It's hard to rate something like this because I didn't enjoy it, but I acknowledge that it's a good book, if that makes sense. If you are into this type of extreme horror, and I know there's definitely a market for it, a fan base for it, and hey, no judgment if that's your thing. It's just not my thing. But if it's yours, you probably would like this. And he's written other books. I don't know if they're all in this kind of extreme category, but check out Lee Allen Howard. And if you are familiar with him, let me know in the comments below. And also let me know, are you somebody who appreciates kind of extreme horror? Is there something about it that maybe I'm not getting? I just find that I need a little more humanity in my story to, not to completely depress me. So that was what I thought of The Bedwetter. And thanks again for the publisher for sending me a free copy of this book for an honest review. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.